Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
And my name's Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Okay, so we just have to lay the scene just a little bit, okay? We haven't had a podcast in a while. Life. I have new AirPods in, and my hearing is weird, and the visuals are blurry. So if I'm going like this or this, it's not because I've aged in the last 6 weeks, which I probably have. It's because of these things. So, hi, Josh. How are you? Welcome back.
I have aged in the last 6 weeks. I'm 41 years old now.
Oh, that's right. Happy belated birthday. Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you. But yeah, so it's been a while, but that's okay. We'll get right back into it. So, I haven't seen as much as I saw last time we did a quick cuts. So, just like you said, life, but, I've seen a good amount of movies, and I'm excited for the movies that I'm about to see because Criterion just had they have one sale a year, where they sell their DVDs or Blu-rays at a cheaper price, and that's the only time I ever buy them. So I just bought a handful of. I bought Night of the Living Dead. I bought Arsenic and Old Lace, the Cary Grant
my
movie.
very first play.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so awesome. So Repo Man,
I love that movie.
Yes. So I'm excited to dig into those and the special features and all that stuff. So, but I just got them, they just arrived. So I haven't had a chance. I just started watching, The Godfather. I got the Godfather trilogy, cause it's the 50th anniversary of The Godfather. Isn't that crazy? But that movie is
what? I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah,
see
so
you.
how was that watching that in the theater when you were an adult?
Just a little bit before my time, my friend.
Okay.
I wasn't allowed to go. I was not age appropriate for those movies in 1974, 72, 74, 80. I did see Godfather 3 in the theater.
Well, that had a little while after. But if you would have seen the horse head in the bed when you were a kid, you would have been out.
It doesn't make it any better that I'm an adult. It didn't make it any better when I saw it when I was adult. I tell you,
it's super real. I started watching it. I'm about halfway through The Godfather, and it looks too real. It doesn't look fake. 80s schlocky horror movies look fake. It looks too real. And I'm just this is oof.
And the production designer who designed the Trail of Blood and how the
all the
silk
way up.
sheets spread open. It's so disgusting. Yes, that was traumatizing when I finally saw it. And 'tis the season because you're talking about Night of the Living Dead. It's October. It's Halloween. The very first time I heard The Exorcist, somebody, I can't remember who it was. I think I was spending the night at a friend's house, and we were listening to their parents watching it down in the den. We were told to go to bed, and I could hear it. That was bad enough. And then I saw it when I was 17, 18 in the theater as a re-release. Mm-hmm. And I was traumatized. That movie there's something psychologically not good about it. So,
well, it's religion, it's horror, it's a young girl. It's all bad news. It's all bad news, all, jammed together. It's
unlike a lot of things nowadays, which of course now makes me sound, back in my day, we walked up backwards with 2 left feet to go to the movies. The thing that's scary about that movie to this day is the devil, the demon's nonchalant attitude about things. Do you remember when she opens the reading table drawer and the priest goes, "Did you do that?" And she goes, "Uh-huh." Yeah, and then the whole sequence that happens right after that is horrifying. Anyway, not to get on a tangent about that, but
it's super scary. Yeah, but there's a lot of just horror movies that there's A24 is doing this thing and they do it every once in a while where they have this screening room where you can without going to the movie theater, and they used to do it especially during big COVID times, where they would have a communal streaming time to watch a movie. You buy a ticket and it's $10 or whatever to get a ticket, and then you stream it along with everybody else, and they're doing a double feature with X and Pearl. Have you heard of either of those movies?
Yes and no.
Okay, X is a Ty West movie, and Pearl is kind of like I guess a semi. I've never seen either one of these, but it's like a semi prequel, and it's also got Mia Goth starring in it as a different character, like in a different time. But they kind of tie together, I guess, somehow. So they're doing like a double feature, like a horror double feature of those two movies, and I think that's kind of cool. Like if you're like going in, and it's kind of like going to a going into a drive-in and watching two movies, which you would rarely do, but I guess that was kind of the norm back in the day when you would like go to the movies for a whole day, and you would have the newsreel, and you would have the cartoons, and you would have the intermission, and you would have the first movie, second movie, and then they would have the trailers, which came at the end of the movies, and they were,
if you think about it,
for the next movies.
Endgame is what, 3 hours and 20 minutes.
That's
Lord of
true.
the Rings, the extended versions are 3 hours and 45 minutes, and they shown them all in the theater. Movies were an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
If that length. So in order to have an experience, you needed all of that stuff to go with it. And I do remember drive-ins, and I never really liked it, though. I didn't like the sound of the box and the whole idea of
now
it was
you
weird.
Put it through your radio, like through your car stereo.
Oh, now,
Sounds amazing.
Bluetooth,
yeah,
everything.
But
Bluetooth. Yeah. What
Sure.
did Sheldon say on The Big Bang Theory? Everything's better with Bluetooth. And I agree. Yeah. So, yes, the movie-going experience has changed, but in a way, it is definitely improved because the quality and the length of films, it's an experience just going to see one movie versus having to go and see the newsreels and all the stuff that you were talking about, the comics or the animation and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So,
back in my day,
we both watched The Woman King, though. Like I saw it in the theater, you saw it in the theater. So what'd you think?
Well, first of all, we were supposed to do a full podcast on it, so I feel a little bit bad that we didn't, but circumstances, life. We're just going to keep saying life. You're going to have something scrolling underneath us. Life. I loved it. I thought it was epic. I thought it was... the fight sequences were amazing. The acting is top notch. I don't have my phone up. Do you have your phone up on IMDb?
Sure.
Because Viola Davis is a standout, as she always is. She's superb. But the young lady who plays the kind of
is Oji?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
yes.
Lashana
how do you
Lynch.
say it?
What's that? Izoji is the character name, but Lashana Lynch is she is kind of like shepherding the young young character too.
Who is the really young?
Oh, you're talking about the main character?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that's man. It's been a while since I've seen it, and they've got different pictures here. Thuso Mbedu.
Yes. Okay, I got her first name right. Well, everybody's talking about Viola Davis getting her 4th Oscar nomination and her 2nd Best Actress. That's fine. But that young lady there is the movie for me. And they'll put her in supporting, and I'm fine with that because that's just the way it works. Everybody has this new term called category fraud, where if somebody is really a lead character and a supporting character is category fraud. Film Twitter.
But Viola Davis got the movie made, and Thuso Mbedu, even though she is kind of like the audience proxy, that doesn't. I mean, she's not the title character, obviously.
Yeah.
But,
well, not only that, but you can't tell her story without Viola Davis's story. And for obvious reasons that we can't talk about without giving too much away. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought the film looked sharp. Everybody says it's Gladiator meets Braveheart, which it is, but it's refreshing to see a story that's not 90%, which we're always talking about. And that's changing a lot nowadays, and that's faster, meaning just not about a father-son relationships.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's really great because this breaks all those rules, if you will. But the thing, the heart of the movie, the soul of the movie is intact, and it's right there from the moment the film takes off. So I think it's kind of easy to say it's a Braveheart meets Gladiator because it is, but there's qualities about it that are inherently different because of the characters being different than anything we've seen in that circumstances. Not anything ever, but in this particular time, meaning we've seen all Gladiator and Russell Crowe's and all those other people. Now it's time. So I thought it was great. What'd you think?
I did too. I thought that, like you said, the stunt work was top notch. They really tried really hard to incorporate in the main characters as much as they could into the stunt work, because you could really tell there's a lot of sweeping shots, a lot of long takes where there's a lot of choreography that the actual actors, that the main actors did, and that takes a lot of physical training and capabilities. I mean, it's essentially like a dance, like you're choreographing the stunt work exactly like a dance. I mean, and any stunt is going to be like that, but and so I thought that was great that they didn't do there wasn't over there wasn't exacerbated cutting of the film. Like, it wasn't trying to do like Jason Bourne shaky cam, get real close, cut, and then we'll fake it. It was real. It felt real. So I thought that was I really appreciated that. And then also, like you said, the characters. This is okay. You can say that it's Gladiator meets whatever, or meets Braveheart, but this gives that extra added complexity of, these are women. These are a group of women warriors who are dedicated to their king and to their kingdom, into their group, and they've kind of chosen this, and they've gone through these tests, and they are now like a codified group. But there's the extra added complication of like being a mother, not being a mother, giving up that choice by being a part of this group. And then, things evolve from there. That is not something that I would have initially thought. Or like, oh yeah, it's just like, it's like Gladiator, but with women. But it's like that there's extra added complexities to that, and that I thought that they dug into a little bit. And then there's also obviously complexities with like male-female interactions, especially with them and other tribes that get explored too. And so it gets really, I'm trying to dance around certain plot points, but it gets complex, and it doesn't shy away from those things, and it just kind of like leans into it. So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. I know there's some, pushback in certain areas about the accuracy, the historical accuracy of this, but much like any other historical fiction, there's going to be points in time. Yeah, there's going to be points where it deviates from the actual history. So, you have to weigh the fact of like, I guess the one thing that I would say is like, did they deviate at the right time to tell the story that they wanted to tell, using the based on a true story part of this, or did they, wait too long to, as far as like adjusting facts and not adjusting facts. And I think that they chose to, I don't know what got this movie made. If it was like, we're going to make up a whole, tribe, a whole group in Africa, that has nothing to do with real life, versus we're going to take this group in Africa that did have a relationship to the slave trade, was really a big part of the slave trade to the West. And we're going to modify that and modify their relationship, or at least at this point in time, their relationship to the slave trade. So, and I think that, I mean, at the moment you say this is historical fiction, you can kind of like go off and do your own thing. Inglourious Bastards is an example. There's nobody said like that didn't actually happen that way. Like it's a different thing. Or, I mean, shoot, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, same thing.
Yeah. No, they celebrate that with Tarantino. They celebrate his rewritten history and the fact that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I just recently watched, not all the way through, but partially through again. I love that movie.
Yes.
The ending of that is a complete rewrite of history, and everybody can look it up, and everybody knows what happens in Inglourious Bastards is not true. My point to that is if you're talking about a documentary and you're looking for facts to prove a point to your documentary, then I think you have issues.
Yeah.
But if that's what you choose to do, then that's what you choose to do. You know that this is the story you want to tell, so you're finding things to manipulate the story to tell it the way that you want. Fine. If you're doing a news story about something like the history of this tribe, that's one thing. But when did we get so caught up in that would never happen? That didn't happen. That's fictional. Well, it's all fictional. It's a movie. I heard people, without saying too much about some of the plot lines, oh, that only happens in a movie. That would only happen in a movie. Because we're watching a movie. Yeah. That's why it's happening in the movie, because it is a movie. I don't understand the waste of brain space to try to, well, that would never happen. Of course, well, neither would The Rock be Black Adam. I mean, it's a simple fix. It's called a movie. It's theater. It's fictional. It's imaginary. Is that a word? It's imagination. Yes. So,
and
Paul James can make up his own language. We can make up plot lines that didn't exist. Who cares?
Steph and I just rewatched Remember the Titans, and another movie based on a true story. It's a difficult story, and they deviated from the real life stuff to make it into a movie, but it wasn't anything that anybody was like, this story shouldn't be told, because it wasn't exactly correct. So it's difficult, because I think one thing that probably got funding for the movie is that it was based on a true story, but then also you can't make a movie that is a direct. It would be difficult to make a movie that is a direct, telling of exactly what happened, because there's no arc, there's no change, there's no dynamics when it comes to particular parts of this of the history of this tribe. So the Dahomey tribe. So.
Well, real quick, the director's name is Gina Prince Blythewood, and she's the director who directed The Old Guard with Charlize Theron. Remember? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. She's got an eye for action. Yeah, she's got an eye for movement, and
you like that really movie more than I did, I think.
Yeah, I know you. Yeah. I know. I was waiting to see if you were just not going to say it, and you're just going to celebrate this film director, or you were going to say it.
No, I mean, she was. I'm sure she was integral in the look of this film, and in every part of this film. So yeah, definitely props to Gina Prince Bythewood. I think that she, was. I'm sure that she spent just as much time and energy on this as she did on The Old Guard. I think that, maybe she was able to extract more out of this than, at least for me, I think she was able to extract more out of this than she was out of The Old Guard. And I think that the budget was probably less on this movie than on The Old Guard. But I think that it was a better film. So it made, the thing has made $60 million domestic. I mean, it had a great opening weekend in today's box office climate. Like that's a serious movie. I mean, it's not Top Gun Maverick, but nothing's Top Gun Maverick. So,
I went like a Tuesday afternoon at 11:30, quarter to 12, and it was packed
for Top Gun Maverick, or for this movie.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I was like, what?
Top Gun. Yeah, I still haven't gotten to Top Gun yet. Although I told you my nephew was like, we need to see that movie.
It comes out on Blu-ray next week. So
I know. I've got him focused on Black Adam now.
Oh, good. So that's coming up too. Yeah. But all right. Well, and the last thing I'll say about Woman King is, Lashana Lynch. We saw her we've seen her in a bunch of stuff, but most recently, she was in No Time to Die. She played the new 007.
Oh yeah.
I like her. That. I mean, she's been great in multiple. I mean, pretty much in everything I've seen her in. But she was in Captain Marvel. She was Monica Rambeau. So yeah, I'm excited to see what she does going forward. I think she's going to be huge going forward. So, all right. Let's see. I got your list of like stuff you've watched. You also watched Elvis, and I did too. Man, like Baz Luhrmann, like I don't want to like him. I feel like he's probably like maybe like a little over the top guy to like hang around, but everything, but everything that he does that I haven't seen The Get Down, that his show that he did on HBO, but just like Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, The Great Gatsby. I mean, I guess
Did you see Australia?
I didn't really like it. So Steph just rewatched it. Like I don't know. I was like, I think I went to a movie and she watched Australia and she's like, that movie's super depressing. And I was like, I don't know. I don't really remember much about it, but like, I think it was, but that's the only one that didn't really hit me. But like, it seems like he has this way of like, I want to not like his movies because they feel like they're trying really hard. And I kind of like shy away from that. Like I like effortless art and just like confident art, but it feels like Baz Luhrmann is really trying to get me to have a great time and really trying to get me to feel emotions. And damn it if he doesn't do it, you know? Like he somehow does it. And that's kind of amazing to me. Because I would feel like I would feel like I would be able to like push that back and be like, no, you're trying too hard. But no, it works.
Okay, so let's backtrack that. I think every film that we know and admire was tried really hard to be made. In other words, even the effortless stuff all takes prep and you know, you look so easy up there. It took weeks to get it to look easy, you know, to actually be relaxed. I was listening to Bradley Cooper talk about the Actor Studio, and he says in the first year, it's only a 3-year program. In the first year, you spend the whole year just learning to relax. And I thought, oh, I would love that, you know, just trying to learn to relax, because once you do, then everything else can happen as an actor per se. He doesn't try too hard. He definitely tries too hard, Baz Luhrmann, to a fault. In the first 40 minutes of his films, it's like, the amount of people who said to me about Moulin Rouge, which I love.
Me too.
The first 40 minutes is so chaotic. I can't, they're right. It's too much too soon at all points. And it's calmed down. And I was hoping that Elvis was, and now that I've seen it, it's a strange thought to think, I hope this one's a little bit less kinetic and a little less Baz Luhrmann. It's not at all. It's probably twice as crazy in the first 40 minutes as most of his other films. So much stuff comes at you. Now, I knew Elvis as a child, like I knew his existence, and I knew he was a pop star, rock star. So I have an idea of what people thought about Elvis, and I've heard his story and I know his backstory. I've seen a bunch of different documentaries on him. I've seen a couple films on him. Kurt Russell back in the day did a little mini series where he played him and he was brilliant. And so I know his story. So it's all in there. It's just so much to decipher at one time. I gave up a little bit halfway through the film. I was like, I'm going to make it through this because I want to and because I should. And I'm usually rewarded after making it through a certain point of Baz Luhrmann films. Because the first time I saw Australia, I cut it off about 30 minutes into it. I was like, nope. And then the second time I saw it, for whatever reason, I wanted to like continue it. And it broke my heart. That little kid in there breaks my heart every time. I sang myself back to you. Oh my gosh. Like, I mean, it's soul stirring. And there's a lot of great moments in Elvis. I'm wondering if people are so distracted by everything that they really can't see the human behind everything. And sometimes it's just like, I wish it was like a puzzle. You could just take a few pieces away and just look at what the center photograph looks like instead of everything on the outsides of it. It's just too much all the time. Did I end up being affected by it? Yes, I did. But I was wondering, is that because my cousin loves Elvis and my mom sort of secretly had a crush on him, and, you know, he's part of my upbringing. And I remember the day he died, exactly where I was. Is that why I was emotionally connected to it? Or did Baz Luhrmann do that to me? I don't know. I don't know. This one, I I don't know. It's just a bit much this time, and so
you didn't like it as much then. It was just kind of too much.
Liked it it's just too much, and the emotional bow that everything gets tied up in Romeo and Juliet, obviously because it's Shakespeare, and Moulin Rouge does too. There are dramatic moments written into those stories. And they're there in Elvis. It's just Tom Hanks's performance is odd to me. His makeup is odd. What was his motivation? Which is an often laughed at line. But what is the Colonel's
Tom Hanks's
purpose?
Motivation, or
no?
The Colonel's?
What is the Colonel's motivation? What was Tom Hanks' character's motivation? Yeah. Was it immortality? Was it recognizing?
No, I think it was living by proxy through Elvis. He felt that all of Elvis's accomplishments were his accomplishments because he facilitated Elvis's rise. But at the same time, he held back Elvis from rising even further or from moving. I mean, like, he was at the same time like the whip and the bridle. Like, he was the thing pushing Elvis forward, but also the thing like tamping Elvis down. So that, I think that and he knew that he was never going to be what Elvis could be just because he didn't look like Elvis and it didn't sound like Elvis, and he wasn't an American like Elvis was, even though he told everybody he was American, even though he wasn't American. He called himself a colonel, even though he was never in the military. Like, all of those things, his whole life was a facade. So I didn't know anything about this guy. So if I'm speaking incorrectly about real Colonel Tom Parker, then forgive me. But that character in that movie that's what I got from that, and from Tom Hanks's portrayal of him. But I think I was going to ask you about Tom Hanks's performance and then about Austin Butler's performance. But did you feel like Tom Hanks was like swinging for the fences, or did you feel like it was the content that was given to him that was kind of lackluster?
Well, I wouldn't say lackluster, because I'm not. If I was doing that for a living, if I was a screenwriter for a living, I would feel more comfortable with saying I thought it was lackluster. I don't do that for a living. I don't have a concept of what it's like to create something like that. So all I am is an observer, which is an important part. But for me, there's always a moment, even in Hannibal Lecter, you empathize with something. Maybe not always. I'm not sure we empathized with Denzel Washington in Training Day. Not really. But there's a moment he has with his son in that movie where you go, I can kind of start to connect why he is the way that he is. It's unimportant in some aspects of the film or to the film. But I was just looking for Colonel Parker. I was looking for a Colonel. That's so stupid. I was looking for a molecule of empathy to him being just part of the human condition. And he's so... What's the character's name from Chicago? The Richard Gere
Billy
character.
Flynn.
Yes, he's so Billy Flynn throughout the whole entire film that the wheeling and dealing held me back from him. So I thought Tom Hanks did... I never lost sight that it was Tom Hanks. That's how I answer that. I never stopped thinking that's Tom Hanks in weird prosthetic neck makeup.
So you're saying Tom Hanks never had a Captain Phillips moment?
If that's a statement you want to make and I just want to go like this, then yes. No, it's not that he didn't have a Captain Phillips moment, but does he?
No, not really. No. I think,
and I understand that that's not what that character is. I get that.
The character is a caricature. It's not I can't imagine that the real person was exactly like that. But maybe he was. I don't know. But
he's a pretty exaggerated personality. When you see him, he's pretty exaggerated. I get why Tom Hanks went there. I was curious. I found myself trying to figure out why Tom Hanks wanted to do that part more so than why Colonel Parker is doing what he's doing to and for Elvis. You know what I'm saying? Like my mind kept.
There's only so many Mr. Rogers to play. I mean, you can. You got to challenge. Maybe he wanted to challenge himself. I don't know.
No, I'm actually not looking for an answer. Really, not really. I would never assume to try to understand what Tom Hanks and why Tom Hanks does what he does. I would never go there. But as an audience member who has an affection for the acting craft, my mind started to drift into different venues. And that's not a good sign for me. That means that I'm not with it. As for Austin Butler, is that his name?
Yeah.
The voice is down 100%. The good looks are down. The charisma was down. The movement was incredible. I have mad props for somebody who can lip sync to something that is well known and get away with it. Angela Bassett, Marion Cotillard for Edith Piaf, Tina Turner for Angela Bassett. It's a mesmerizing thing to do, and he has that down. There's so much thrown at him in that film, and he goes through so much that I lost an emotional connection to him. I think in any other year, if there had been, just like in Uncut Gems, slow down. We're asking for you to slow down. Obviously, that's not what they wanted to do. I get that. But there's so much coming at you in Elvis that I emotionally disconnected. So if he'll get a Golden Globe nomination, if he wins, good for him. Will he get an Oscar nomination?
It's crazy that you say that, because I didn't think about that at all. Like, I guess maybe I don't need an emotional connection to...
Because you're a robot.
I'm trying to figure out, like, maybe there's like a percentage thing. It's like certain things may take over. Like, if there's nothing else there, if this is like, the tragedy of Macbeth, right? Like, I don't have music to like hang my hat on. I don't have choreography to hang my hat on. I don't have amazing set design. Well, it was amazing set design, but I don't have like the opulence on the screen and the technicolor, eye popping, eye candy that is on the screen, with like all of the different, suits that he's wearing and all the different backdrops and all of the different things going all over the place. And just the physical musical performances that are going on in front of you. Like, I don't have any of that to hang my hat on. So I have to look into, Lady Macbeth, and I have to look into what Denzel Washington's choices are in that movie to really like, grapple with what's going on in this film and what can I grab onto. But I immediately grabbed onto all of those things, all those other things in Elvis. And I didn't necessarily need that like character hook or need that, like, what's Tom Hanks' motivation or what, I don't know. It was enough for me. Like, I was full and I was pushing myself away from the table at the end of the movie because I'd seen enough and I'd experienced enough and I'd felt enough in the moment and wasn't sitting there stewing on, it's not like Drive My Car. It's not like I'm sitting there watching this man going through these emotional things on stage, like it's just, it was a different experience, different, film experience for me. So I don't know.
Maybe that happens to me every time, maybe that's just how I'm set up. So would you go back to that buffet?
Oh yeah, sure. If he did, if he did, I don't know if he did another.
I'd be like, what's that black and white buffet over there with the title Macbeth on it? That Jell-O was good. I need to go back and get me some more of that Jell-O.
That's the other thing, is that you can really dig deep on Tragedy of Macbeth. Whereas, like you said, it's like, it's all cheesecake with Elvis. It's all like, fast calories with Elvis, I think. So, I mean, it's a different movie experience. It's expecting something different. So, I don't know.
That's fair. I'm right now trying to watch what I eat. So the whole idea of cheesecake is it's tempting, but yet no. I need to. You're
gonna have the chicken carcass of Tragedy of Macbeth. So.
Bone that just breaks into ashes as you break it apart.
No.
Yes.
Well, something that I feel like was trying to be all of those things was Don't Worry, Darling. I did actually go and see this in the theater.
I'm curious to see to hear what you thought about it, because I have not seen it yet.
I mean, Florence Pugh's amazing. You can like hang a whole movie on her back and she will like walk it up the mountain. But I think that she's not the only one who did amazing work in this movie. Like the production design was amazing. The sound design was really good. Costumes were just flawless. I guess they shot in Palm Springs. Did you ever go there when you lived in LA? Okay.
Palm Springs?
Yeah.
Couple of times.
Okay. So like we never made it down there. Like we lived in Sacramento. So like we never really went down. Like we went to LA once. That was it. So we never made it to Palm Springs. But just like the whole, I mean, that's where they shot this movie. And there's some iconic pieces of architecture and like homes and stuff that they shot in and all kinds of stuff that's very, like mid-century modern, that stuff. And I think it's such an aesthetic and it's going for such a feeling. And I think that Olivia Wilde delivered on all of that, but there were some serious problems with the movie. And I can't go into it too much because there's stuff that happens that I think would rob you. I went into this movie like completely blind other than watching the trailer. And I'm glad I did, because it would have been such a great experience, I think, if they figured out a way to write the movie and to get get it across the finish line in a better manner. But I feel like the pacing was really weird and it just kept, and the story was just really tough. Like it's an adaptation, but I felt like they spent way too much time on certain things and definitely not enough time on other things. And you leave the movie with more questions than answers about the plot. And that's not good. There's all this stuff that's added in there that's supposed to be intriguing and supposed to be like thought provoking and supposed to be like scratching your head and like, spawn 1,000, after movie conversations over coffee. And it doesn't, it's tough. So that's the hardest part for me. But yeah, I mean, like good performances, but like I said, Florence Pugh was great. She's awesome. So,
well, in a perfect world where I would only have to wake up and worry about going to the movies, I would have seen it by now. But when, we've talked about this before, time and money and life, you just can't see everything. I will see it.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued to see it. I like all those people. I'm giving Olivia Wilde the benefit of the doubt, not because, any other reason other than she's proven that she's solid as a director. And I'm curious because you and I match up a lot when we talk about stuff, but sometimes we don't. And I'll be curious. I have a sense about it. And I think that we've talked about this before. You don't like to watch trailers because you don't want to know anything that's coming. I don't like to watch trailers because I can get a sense of whether or not I'm going to like the movie or not. And I don't know if that's an influence on me when I go see the movies, but a lot of times I come out of the theater and I go, what was going on with that? Oh yeah, I remember seeing the trailer and thinking there's something not right about this. So I don't know. We'll see. That whole Stepford wife thing.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah. No, I'm fascinated by that storyline and I'm fascinated by that idea and I'm fascinated by these communities. And I am working a job right now where I have to go into a lot of these communities have more money than other communities. And as soon as I go into it, I feel like I'm in a whole nother like world that I don't belong in. And I'm afraid I'm going to misstep. I'm in and out, thank goodness. But so I'm intrigued by the idea.
You're a jewel thief, right? Is that your new job?
Yes, I'm a jewel thief. I can't get any technology to work for me ever, but I'm going to go ahead and break into people's houses with new 2022 electronic alarm systems. And yes, I can do that stuff.
Sure, no problem.
Headphones, recording devices, forget about it. All right. Well,
tell me about Blonde.
What I saw next
I
is something
know,
I was...
No, hold on. I want to know about Blonde. Like, I got to know about
That's
this.
what I was going to say. I was going to say that.
I don't have Netflix right now. Like, I probably would have seen it by now, but we we have too many like streaming services, and so we stopped Netflix and Apple TV Plus. So for a little while, so I'll get to it, but I do want to hear what you felt about Blonde.
I'll say the same thing that Ana de Armas is great. I think she's the best Marilyn Monroe on film to date, and I love the hell out of Michelle Williams in My Week with Marilyn, and I like Marilyn Monroe, and I like the idea of what she was versus what we got versus what she was allowed to be. I don't like the idea, meaning I'm intrigued by that idea. I'm intrigued by her being considered one of the best actresses Lee Strasberg ever met. I'm intrigued by seeing the footage from her last movie where you can see that she really has depth and a side to her that we didn't get to see. I'm intrigued by all of that, but I just keep coming back to the same question about Blonde. I don't know what the filmmakers wanted from us, one, and I don't know what they were trying to say with this film. And my first initial reaction was, you ever heard that theory, don't become a monster to stop a monster? You know, don't create an army to destroy an army. You're becoming a monster to stop a monster. And I'm positive on some level, even though I have no way of knowing this, that the filmmakers didn't mean to come across this way, but everything that they're accusing the world of doing to Marilyn Monroe, which did happen, and all of the filth and disgusting stuff that she had to go through to be a Hollywood starlet at the time, and all of the misogyny, and that's not even the best word for it. There needs to be a deeper, darker word for that kind of misogyny.
Exploitation, really. I mean,
exploitation, yeah, but that's still not dark enough, because the idea that you can just... I actually saw a documentary about Marilyn Monroe 2 days after I saw Blonde, and and it's on Netflix too, one of the older gentlemen talking about Hollywood back in the day. Now it's money, he said. Back then it was sex. Back then it was bodies. Back then it was your black book and your casting couch. Okay. So when you're going to present that as part of this human being's life, how do you do that and have an audience understand the horror of it and the exploitation of it? How do you explain that without it becoming that? Without it becoming seemingly a misogynistic view or a sexist view, or you're exploiting somebody. How do you make that happen? And so I don't know who they were making this film for, because it, maybe in my defense about having to watch some of the stuff that she had to go through, I'm immediately defensive towards her and want to protect her just as a human being. Maybe, I don't know, but a lot of it seemed like a snuff film, like something that was.
So okay,
I don't know if you needed to see it in order to understand it, in order to feel it from her and the world that happened to her.
So what about?
But you see it.
Yeah. What about war movies that are made by people who are anti-war, that are graphic and that show the horrors of war? Those are, you could have one person watch it and look at that as glorifying war, and you could have another person watch it and say, like, this is exactly why we should never go to war. And it's the same images.
We've had this debate before, because we talked about Inglourious Bastards, and we talked about American Sniper, both of which being accused of being propaganda-esque films in their approach to the murders, and of course, obviously, Inglourious Bastards is purposeful when the Nazi is doing what he's doing in the film. It's obviously, it's propaganda, but people accused American Sniper of that. Well, I didn't see it at the time. Meaning I saw the movie, but I didn't see that at the time. And you and I actually discussed that, because of Bradley Cooper's performance, I understood that that's not the intention of the film, or at least that's not what I took from the intention of the film. But I just recently saw it again, and I could see how somebody saw what they were accusing the film of. I saw it this time. And through her performance as Marilyn Monroe, I was hoping to transcend that. So I understand the question, and it's a very good question about, well, what about anti-war films? That's an interesting question.
Did Andrew Dominic think that we didn't realize
the director, writer?
He's the writer director. Did he think that like the only way for people to realize what Hollywood did to Marilyn Monroe and the men around her did to her is to show us what they did? Now that may be his view. I haven't even seen the movie, but I know that it's got an NC-17 rating. So there's a lot of graphic something in there. And so do you feel like that's why he pushed for that?
Yeah. I mean, I would never speak on what I thought his intentions were. I can only speak on how I felt when I was watching it. And the end of it was, I was upset that she was so convincing that Marilyn now has that, the image of Marilyn Monroe now has that in it for me, which is fine. That's fine. I'm not delusional to the world. I understand that image that we see of her with her skirt going up, which is in essence inappropriate to begin with. I understand that there's a real human being behind that, and there's a real story behind that. And I understand that this person had to go through stuff, and that the reason why her candle was burning at both ends is the metaphor that a lot of people use when they talk about her, including Elton John. I understood all of that. I just, when the movie was over with, I felt empty, and I felt like I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. And maybe that's actually a compliment, because it did make me feel stuff. Julianne Nicholson plays her mother, and I am secretly a closeted Julianne Nicholson fan. Like, she's amazing. We need to get her towards the Oscar podium, because she just won an Emmy for Mayor of Easttown, which she deserved. And I kept saying, I hope she finally gets recognized. I hope she finally gets recognized. She is devastating in this film. She plays Marilyn Monroe's, or Norma Jean's, mother. And it's kind of rocked my world with her now too, because there's so many things about her on screen that I love. Now I see a whole nother side to her. I'm like, okay, I knew you were an intense actress, but did you have to show us that? If that's the storyline, then so be it. She does an excellent job. That's what I'm trying to say. I just don't know. That I felt what was intended. And I don't think any filmmaker is going to try to tell you what to feel. I came out of it the opposite that I thought I was going into it. I thought I was going to be angry and upset and mad at that world, and I was. But in the end, it's like watching a scary movie, and you're going like this. You know,
yeah. So you didn't need it. Like, so then what's the, why make a movie about it? Why make a movie about it?
This is my point. And I'm not trying to be like, haha, I made my point to Josh finally after 8 years. Finally, he understood me. It took me 8 years. That would be my lot in life, by the way. No, I'm not saying that. Andrew Dominic didn't have an intention, and there wasn't a method behind his chemistry set.
This is an amazing filmmaker. He made the assassination of Jesse James Billy Robert Ford. Like, he made that movie. He also made Killing Them Softly, which I was not a fan of. But
yeah,
I mean,
me either.
He's got, he's up there for me because of that assassination movie. So, I mean, yeah, that's why I definitely want to see it. But I've heard that, it's it's rough.
Okay. Assassination of Jesse James. Blah, 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 blah. The point I took from that movie is when you put somebody on a pedestal, either by societal standards or by your own standards, you're no longer focused on your own life. And your life becomes about your image in that person's eyes. And that's what Robert Ford did. That's what Casey Affleck got his first Oscar nomination for, because we saw all of that. Okay. Mm-hmm. He was the runt of the litter. He was the one that, got picked on, if you will. He wanted Jesse James to pat him on the back and go, "Good job, Robert Ford." And he didn't. So what he did is he taxi drivered his mind and ended up killing this guy. And what did he end up doing for the rest of his life? Plays and shows and readings about how he killed Jesse James. So his whole life became about this guy, but not in a way where his life flourished and he became a better person because he had that person in his life. His life was stomped on because he couldn't get out of his own way in the image of what somebody has put Jesse James on the pedestal. That was clear to me when I saw that movie. Whether or not that's what Andrew Dominic wanted from us, whether or not that's what he meant, that's what I took from that movie. And I've seen that movie 3 times. I love that movie. Mm-hmm. I still feel the same way every time I come out of it. I don't understand Robert Ford anymore, but I understood why he did what he did on some level. And then, he's got the painted up face and he's doing this really crazy over the top play about it. And people are throwing things at him. And his life is now he's no longer going to be remembered as Robert Ford. He's going to be remembered as the outlaw who killed Jesse James, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So that's what I took. Blonde, I think I would need a little museum guide in my ear and watch it again with something where I could read something. Well, the director was talking about this at this point. Oh, okay. I saw that. I don't see that. Mm-hmm. But that's not what movies are. So.
Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, that's
she's amazing, though. She's amazing.
Okay.
Amazing. And she also started to do this thing in the beginning of the film where she kind of when she becomes Marilyn, and they make that very much the distinction, which is now the storyline of Marilyn Monroe. She was really 2 different people, which makes sense. She was always getting misty-eyed and teary-eyed and always upset about everything. And I was like, oh, this is no, what's happening here? I love you. What are you doing? And then I saw that documentary. And I thought to myself, wow, Ana de Armas tapped into something, because there is an enormous amount of footage of Marilyn Monroe looking away and getting teary-eyed about whatever's happening in her life at the time. And she nailed it. So nice. For that alone, it's worth seeing. All the other stuff, good luck.
So Park Chan-wook has a new movie coming out soon called Decision to Leave. And there's actually a couple movies that look really interesting coming out. There's that one, South Korean film. And then there's also Triangle of Sadness, our boy, Ruben Östlund, the director of The Square. And so, and boy. Force Majeure. So, and that one looks really interesting too. Very, satirical kind of like.
Oh, I just saw the trailer for that today with Woody Harrelson.
Yep. So that's, that one will be an interesting one, I think. But because Decision to Leave is coming out and I've seen all of Park Chan-wook's other stuff, except I still have not watched Little Drummer Girl, which was directed by Park Chan-wook, starring Florence Pugh and Michael Shannon and Alexander Skarsgård. So but it's kind of hard to find. You can't find it on streaming very easily. It's on AMC or something. Or Sundance Channel. I don't know. It's on one of those, but I haven't watched that yet, but I've pretty much kept up with Park Chan-wook ever since Old Boy and before, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and Lady Vengeance. He's done a bunch of movies. And so he's great. But one movie I never saw was The Handmaiden. And it's hard to describe. It's Japanese occupied Korea in World War II, and there's an kind of like upper crust a Korean guy who really wants to be Japanese, and he has like a young girl living with him, and she needs a handmaiden. So there's this whole plot that is tapped into to try to like to try to essentially like, you know, ruin this woman's life and get these assets from this rich guy. And so that's kind of how the movie kicks off. But the movie gets more complicated when the handmaiden and the young woman, fall in love with each other. And so then it gets even more complicated as the movie goes on. It's definitely like, it has like the same intensity as Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but it has like barely any restraint on a like sexually. Like it is just they're doing it. So it was something that I was kind of like, initially I knew that it was somewhat graphic movie, and I was like, I could probably, pass. But then I was like, it's on Amazon Prime right now. And then I was like, you know what? I need to kind of like close this loop. And I'm so glad that I saw it, because it's so much more complex than like, it's not like a, 9.5 weeks type movie, or a Cinemax movie. It's not one of those like gratuitous nudity or it's or just salacious for no reason. There's a real story, and it gets really deep, and it kind of like plumbs the depths of man's depravity, really, and how that can affect women and all of that. So it's definitely worth a watch. I mean, if you're okay with, like anybody out there who's kind of like, shies away from certain graphic sex scenes, like you can fast forward through them or whatever. But the movie itself and the complexity of the plot and the choices in filmmaking and the sets are amazing. But ultimately, it's such a complex like puzzle box of a movie that it's so fun to like take apart. And I only saw it once, but I can tell that like when I see it again, there's so many things that are revealed to the audience in time, that Park Chan-wook like leaves all of these things out there for you to kind of grab onto. And some of them I grabbed onto, and others I didn't. And there's no loose threads in this movie. Like it's all contained in this nice package. So it's such a great movie. So yeah.
So it sounds like you need to see Blonde and I need to see The Handmaiden.
Yeah, sure.
And then we can come back and compare and contrast, because I'm just now realizing he's Stoker. I did not realize that.
Yeah, he did. And that's his, I think that was it his first English language film with Mia Wasikowska?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it.
I think it was. He did Thirst too. That was a vampire movie. That's on Criterion right now. Yeah, that's like a vampire movie with the same guy who was in The Host and Parasite. I think it's the same main character. The dad driver in Parasite is the priest in Thirst. So yeah.
So he's like their George Clooney. He's
guess.
everywhere.
He's in a lot of movies.
Him.
He's in a lot
act.
of movies. But yeah,
good.
He's in Memories of Murder. That's another movie that Bong Joon-ho did. So before Parasite. So yeah, they get around. But
directors do that, man. They know. Mm-hmm. Like Scorsese knows. De Niro early, Leonardo later on.
There you go.
And Tarantino took a little while, but he came quick with De Niro, but took a little while for Leo.
Yeah.
But now they're good.
Oh, they're in now. Yeah. Killers of the Flower Moon and everything. So, okay. Very quickly, TV. We both saw She-Hulk. How did you like it?
Yes.
Did you see the last episode?
I did.
I liked it.
And it's almost too clever for its own good. I don't. Maybe I'm a little sarcastic or a little cynical this week.
I think we're ready for that.
Yeah, sure, it's fun. It's a. I need to see Kevin, and then you meet Kevin, and it's funny and it's clever. But is it if you don't really know? Because like if you were 6, 7 years old watching it, would you really get it? I mean, you wouldn't.
I don't think this show is for a 7-year-old. It's
a superhero movie or TV show.
A lot
of course it is.
There's
there's nothing offensive in the movie.
No.
I mean, no more so than anything that's a double entendre in Toy Story. That's all there. I mean, all that stuff is there in Pixar films. It's like things that make animation funny for kids have a double meaning for adults, which makes it interesting for adults. They're not trying to influence anybody or trying to give anything to a child before their mind is ready to handle it. It's just double layered so adults can enjoy it too. I like that. Overall, I thought it was okay. I'm not overly enthused by it. Mm-hmm. There's the fourth wall breaking thing. That's
based on the comics. I mean, that exact same thing happens in the comics. So
absolutely. And
if they didn't do it, it would be weird, I would think.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that they don't do that they've chosen to do differently because of the
MCU.
Or transposing it from one medium to the next. I mean, that happens all the time. We talk about this all the time. A chair in a play is horses and a cart. In a movie, it's horses and a cart. In a book, it's a description of horses and a cart. Mm-hmm. So that happens all the time. No, I wasn't. I mean, I watched it weekly. Mm-hmm. I looked forward to it on Thursday nights when it came on. And
okay, all right. Well, there you go. What about Werewolf by Night? Did you see that?
No, but I've heard about it. It's on a list of.
It's like 50 minutes long, very quick. It's it's cute. I mean, I think that it's cute. They really lean into it. And I didn't know who directed it, and I don't think you should look at it. If you're gonna watch it, don't look up who directs it, and then
okay.
Because when I saw at the end, I was like, it's so cool. But yeah, I liked Werewolf by Night too. Because it was like an episode. It was less than an episode of, Andor, which Steph and I are watching, which I also like. Obi-Wan Kenobi, I didn't really care for, but Andor. We watched Rogue One before Andor started, and because it has Cassian Andor in it, and then this show Andor is like 5 years before that, so it's that main character, and I think it's the perfect way to go with Star Wars shows where we don't see a lot of the cliched things that you would normally see in a Star Wars show. And it, doesn't, like, there's no Jedi. There's none of that. Like, we don't need it. Like, there's middle managers in the Empire and higher ups in the government that are rebels, that are like double agents essentially, and then people on the ground that are really trying to cause a dust up in one part of the galaxy, and that's who we're focused on. It's really low level people and then high level people, both for the same goal. And I thought that's such a cool way to deal with that, because we do see the rebels, we do see the Empire in all of the Star Wars movies, but especially the first trilogy, but the original trilogy, I should say. But you don't get that like how all of this stuff affects other people, not just like somebody who happens to have more midi-chlorians than everybody, or a guy who likes to ride his speeder to get power converters. So it's a different feeling, and I like it. I like the aesthetic of it, and I like the content too. It's cool.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I lost track of Obi-Wan.
We didn't watch, we got halfway through it and then we just forgot that they kept making episodes.
Until you just mentioned it, I forgot I stopped watching it.
Well, there you
That's
go.
bad. I mean, I'm sure I'll catch up eventually, because that's just how I'm a completion completist when it comes to things like that. Completionist. I definitely follow things through. So yeah, I finally finished the 5 seasons of Better Call Saul. The 6th season's not out yet, so I haven't completed that yet. So I'm doing that, and I just saw The Watcher, which everybody's talking about. Naomi Watts, Billy Cannavale, however we're saying his name now. So it was interesting. I don't think you'll be too much into it, but I mean, it kind of started the Halloween season for me. I needed something. American Horror Story comes on tomorrow. I need something. Ryan Murphy, Big House. The cast was incredible, and Mia Farrow's in it. Haven't seen her doing stuff in a while, so that was good.
I saw that. Yeah. It's Naomi Watts. You said, yeah, and Bobby.
Naomi Watts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cannavale, Coolidge,
Jennifer
Coolidge, yeah, and quite a few other people that you'll recognize.
I saw the trailer, and there's like a couple people like, "Hey, it's that guy," like that.
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I finished watching Inventing Anna with Julia Gardner. And that was interesting. I'm just fascinated that a person like that existed and that she got away with everything that she got away with. And her accent and her dialect is so bizarre and
made up.
Aaron Sorkin just recently came out and said that he didn't think that Julia Gardner had the dialect down correctly. But really, it's kind of hard pressed to say that because this young person, Anna Delvey or Sorokin, whichever her name is at that particular time, she didn't have a normal accent anyway.
Yeah.
And, in the beginning of the film, Anna Klumsky is in it. She's okay. But there's a lot of those people where you're like, oh, I know that guy. Oh, I know. Oh, I like that guy. Oh, I like her. Oh, I like her. Oh, I remember her from Nurse Jackie. Oh, I like that. So I followed it through. Plus, I'm fascinated with the fact that somebody has the strength to completely make up a life and completely make up anything that she's thinking that she wants and actually starts to get it in the works. I mean, she ends up, everybody knows the story at this point. She ends up not doing so well, but I'm fascinated by people who are so solid in their frame of mind. And the way that Anna Delphi spoke was so unusual to me that I couldn't get through the first episode because I was like, it's like a fake dialect that's not very good, but that's who she was. And so I was fascinated by that. And I watched a show called Midnight Mass. Have you heard about that?
No.
I watched it a little while ago. It's an interesting take on an old subject that if I tell you what it's about, it will give it away immediately. So I can't. But
is it a horror movie? Is it a horror show? Horror show?
Not at first. And yes and no. It's kind of hard to say without really giving too much away. It's about a small island community that happens to be, the majority of them happen to be Catholic, and the church and a lot of philosophies about the church, the teachings of the church. And I was raised Catholic, so my ear goes right to it. But what they ended up twisting it into, not the church or anything about Catholicism, if you will, but the idea that comes out of it, you're like, oh yeah, why isn't that talked about more? Like, that's a really good idea. Why is nobody really talking about that? So something to check out if you've got nothing better to do,
Well, that is interesting. You got anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. You can tweet us at actorengineer, and we are on YouTube. You can see us and just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast, and we'll be there. All right. We'll see you next time.